just sit in complete silence. It's very tough to do. So we'll take 60 seconds right now and just sit and think of things that you're grateful for, people that have crossed your path in your lifetime that you recognize did wonderful things for you. And most of all, allow yourself to breathe. And this morning, with great gratitude, we say thank you for all of our blessings. We honor every one of y'all for being here today. And we say thank you, thank you, thank you with great gratitude. Most wonderful place to start. And in case you didn't notice, when our mind's quiet, doesn't a minute seem like a long time? Have a good day.
You will stand. We are going to continue in worship by singing Only God Can Fill.
There's a place inside myself only God can fill. Made for God and nothing else. Only God can fill. There's no person, place, or thing. Only God can fill. Moves like God to make me sing. Only God can fill. Only God can fill.
Up in the mystery voice on the side instead of in front of the camera. Sorry about this for those online. Welcome to everyone here, those online, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. And let's go with our thank yous. We have lots of people to always be thankful for. Everyone, but then specific roles. We have our ushers and greeters. Wave your hand. have our chaplains. Oh, I see Kathy. Sorry, Kathy. We have former chaplains too. We also have, of course, our sound and PowerPoint with Les and Bob in the back. So we're grateful for them. And of course, one and always, Dawn. And we have today a very special speaker from within our own group. We have Linda Queso, who will be sharing with us about African American culture and how it's impacted my life. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry. Oh my, what a difference. Woo. Should we start over? No, we won't do that. But we will catch you for the announcement. Well, before I go on, with Linda's talk, there will be handouts in the back. So if you want to learn more about the African American culture, Black history, please feel free to stop and browse the table. We also want to thank the basement committee, like Fran and Bob and Tim and Dave, and I'm probably leaving some folks out. So if anyone else has been helping with that project directly, I know they've been painting. Oh, sorry, Lauren. Lauren and Susan. Thank you all. It is really coming along. If you haven't walked downstairs to check it out, please do so. Let's see. And, of course, we would not be complete without some dad jokes, right? Before I do the dad jokes, let me remind you, there is the newsletter, there is a bulletin, there are lots of announcements. I mean, like today is our Energy Day that will be probably held in the side hallway, just so that it's a little bit more private and more calmer, while other activities happening out here in the main area. There are studies going on. We always have our study before the worship service. And too many papers. Let's see. The Crystal Bowl meditation, if you haven't marked your calendar, is February 14th. The Love and Action Volunteer, to appreciate all our volunteers within our own group, is Sunday the 16th. There is a leadership training, and although it's for the board, it is for anyone and everyone that wants to participate. And that will be Saturday, February 22nd. There's also a game night coming up at the end of the month, February 28th. We have the telepathy tapes. There'll be a conversation about that in March. And we have our annual meeting March 16th. And I'm just like hitting the dates, but please look at the newsletter, look at the bulletin, put those dates on your calendar. We're all here and to support each other, and your feedback's very important. All right, dad jokes. First one, since the snow is pretty much gone, what is it called when a snowman throws a tantrum? All right. And the prize goes to Dave. Woo-hoo. Yes, it's a meltdown. All right. For the coffee drinkers, what do you call a sad cup of coffee? A depresso. All right. Tracy usually has a little bit of a longer one, so let me give you this one. Twin 7-year-old boys were always getting into trouble. The parents knew if there was mischief, it was going to be the twins. Whether it was at school, home, the community, church, they were going to be in trouble. The mother and the father talked, decided, maybe the preacher should have a word with the boys. So they asked. The preacher agreed to meet with the boys, said he would meet with them individually. The mother arranged a meeting. The first little boy went in. The preacher looked at the little boy and said, "Do you know where God is?" The little boy was just kind of looked around like, okay, next question. Preacher said again, "Do you know where God is?" The little boy screamed, ran out of the office, ran home, hid in his closet. Mother and his brother went to him and said, "What's wrong?" He said, "You're not going to believe this. God is missing, and they think we did it." All right, if you will turn off your cell phones, if you haven't already, we are going to continue in worship. And one other point, if you are a visitor and have not received a visitor pack, do you want to raise your hand? I probably should have done this before we continued. Everyone good? All right, if not, please, there'll be greeters and others that can help help give you a packet and make you feel more welcomed if you're not already. Next is our wonderful way of welcoming each other. It is our divine greeting. So if we will stand and greet each other. If you're not a hugger, put your hand out, handshake, shoulder rub. All right. I feel all the energy, but we're going to come back together so we can sing. Woo! Who wants to sing a song? Yes, we're going to sing There Is Love, which we're all experiencing. Woo!
There is love in and through us and them and me and you, like the wind through the trees, like the salt within the sea. There is love full of power, and it's growing by the hour as we live here in God's amazing grace. There is joy in us all, every creature great and small, in the warmth of a smile, in the laughter of a child. And there is joy in the light, like a beacon through the night, as we live here in God's amazing grace. There is peace in the world, deep in every boy and girl, and we will find a way, and God's peace will rule the day, because there's love full of power, and it's growing by the hour as we live here in God's amazing grace. We are loved through and through. It's in everything we do. We are joy, and we found when we spread it all around that we have peace in our soul. We are beautiful and whole as we live here in God's amazing grace. We have peace in our soul. We are beautiful and whole as we live here in God's amazing grace. As we live here in God's amazing grace.
Good morning. Good morning. The word is look ahead. I look ahead with positive expectations. So many things pull at my attention. The things I must attend to, meeting the needs of others, and even my own pursuits and passions require my time and attention. Setting and working toward goals may sound like a dull undertaking, but it's actually an empowering path to spiritual freedom. Working toward a goal helps me focus and keeps me motivated. I call upon and claim my spiritual gifts of imagination in order to set my goal and plan to achieve it. I use my gift of wisdom to discern the best path and my will to make the best choices. This is the way I use the power of God to give my life meaning and make my dreams come true. I look ahead, grateful for God's presence within me. And the scripture is from Proverbs 4:25-26. Let your eyes look directly forward, and let your gaze be straight before you. Keep straight the path of your feet, and all your ways will be sure. So look ahead.
Our Creator, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from error. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. In this very room is quite enough love for one like me. And in this very room There's quite enough joy for one like me, and there's quite enough hope and quite enough power to chase away any gloom. For Spirit is in this very room. In this very room, there's quite enough love for all of us. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all of us. And there's quite enough hope and quite enough power to chase away any gloom. For Spirit is in this very room. And in this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough hope and quite enough power to chase away any gloom. For Spirit is in this very room.
And now let's prepare for our meditation. I invite you to take a deep, slow, cleansing breath. And as you exhale, release any cares or worries. Release that to-do list. Breathing in peace. Breathing in the love that you are. And releasing all dis-ease. All thoughts of dis-ease. And as we allow our mind to go to our heart space, we claim our divine faith. The faith that keeps us moving throughout this life. That unseen knowing within us. The knowing of our Christ light, our divinity. Rest for a moment, knowing that you are divine. And think of the people that came before us, the brave souls that claim their faith and their divinity, to give us the freedom to be able to celebrate all the divine African American souls that have brought us to this point today, to this point of freedom, to this point of celebration. Allow yourself to feel gratitude for the ability to celebrate that today. Allow yourself to feel gratitude for all the people in your life that have made a difference. Allow yourself to feel gratitude for you, your beauty, the beauty of your essence and your wholeness as you rest in the silence. And as you come back to this present moment, remember that you are the love that you seek, that you make a difference, that you are perfect, whole, and complete, and that you have everything within you to fulfill your purpose and to live your best Christ life. So as we open our eyes and wiggle our fingers and toes and take a deep breath, even if we don't want to come back, we come back to this moment, knowing what is ours to do, full of gratitude, full of faith, full of love. And so it is. Amen.
The road is on, with many a winding turn that leads us to who knows where, who knows where. But I'm strong, strong enough to carry him. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. So on we go. His welfare is my concern. No burden is he to bear. We'll get there. For I know he would not encumber me. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. If I'm laden at all, I'm laden with sadness that everyone's heart isn't filled with the gladness of love for one another. It's a long, long road from which there is no return. While we're on our way to there, why not share? And the load doesn't bring me down at all. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. He's my brother. He ain't heavy, he ain't heavy. He's my brother.
Yeah.
I got this. Don, thank you. You literally brought me to tears. Perfect, perfect song. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. So I'm going to do a lot of reading. So hopefully you can follow along and stay with me. At Unity East, we are acknowledging and celebrating Black History Month for the first time. It's my honor to be the chair of the committee for this first celebration. The committee consists of Pat Mitchum, Suzanne G. Gregorio, my Italian came in, Kathy Smithland, and Susan Higgins Smith. So thank you all for being part of the committee to put this celebration together this month. Each Sunday during the month of February, we will present a different speaker on the overarching theme of personal stories on the impact of African American culture in your life. And our speaker for next week is Di Kerrigan. I mentioned that last week when I was running down the list, and she and her husband are with us today. So we look forward to hearing your talk next week, Di. Thank you. I want to begin by thanking you for your presence here today, in person or on one of the streaming platforms. My job this month is to educate, inform, and pique your curiosity about Black culture and life in the U.S. The goal is to satisfy that curiosity by investigating and learning more, using as a start some of the resources we have identified on our website and that will be available in print at the rear of the church after service today. Let me begin by setting the stage. The conversations this month will be difficult and uncomfortable at times. There's no way around it. American culture has long ignored, denied, stolen, or whitewashed contributions made by African Americans. Even slavery has not been spared. In recent years, some very prominent politicians have revived that tired bromide that, and I quote, slavery was good for the enslaved. After all, they were removed from their subsistence in Africa to be clothed, fed, and housed in this great country. I'm sure each of you would happily work for no pay while also being whipped, starved, beaten, stolen away from your family, culture, language, as you also endure watching the rape of your wife, mother, daughters at the whim of someone who claims to own you. These missives often leave out any mention of the great nations and families we were stolen from. As I mentioned, at times these will be uncomfortable conversations. This is even more true in our current political climate that sees an administration that is determined to erode the minor successes of civil rights and earlier movements over the last 50 to 60 years to roll back the clock to a time before emancipation. I will share some little-known facts about American history that involve African Americans. In addition, I will share my lived experience as a Black woman in American society today. Sit back and get ready to be awakened from your slumber. I'm going to talk about the first incident in history I'll begin with is the successful coup on U.S. soil, the only one. It's the story of Wilmington, North Carolina, circa 1898. The 1898 coup d'etat in Wilmington, North Carolina represents a tragic and significant moment in American history. This event, also known as the Wilmington Insurrection or the Wilmington Massacre, was the only successful coup on American soil. It involved a violent overthrow of the legally elected local government by white supremacists, resulting in the deaths of many African Americans and the displacement of thousands more. Following the Civil War, the Reconstruction era, 1865 to 1877, brought significant changes to the southern United States. Efforts to integrate formerly enslaved African Americans into society and politics were met with fierce resistance from many white Southerners. Despite these challenges, African Americans made substantial political gains in North Carolina, particularly in Wilmington, where a thriving African American middle class emerged and African American leaders held various political offices. The Fusionist movement. In the 1890s, North Carolina saw the rise of the Fusionist movement, an alliance between the Populist Party and the Republican Party. This coalition sought to challenge the dominance of the Democratic Party, which was largely supported by white supremacists. The Fusionists advocated for policies that benefit both poor white and Black citizens, leading to increased political representation for African Americans in Wilmington and other parts of the state. As the 1898 election approached, the Democratic Party launched a campaign of white supremacy and fear-mongering. They sought to regain control of the state by disenfranchising African American voters and dismantling the Fusionist coalition. The campaign was fueled by speeches, editorials, and propaganda that painted African Americans as a threat to white society. The Wilmington Daily Record, an African American-owned newspaper, became a focal point of racial tensions. In August 1898, Alex Manley, the editor of the Daily Record, published an editorial challenging the racist narrative that African American men were a threat to white women. This editorial further inflamed white supremacist sentiments and was used as a pretext for the ensuing violence. On the morning of November 10, 1898, a group of approximately 2,000 white men, led by prominent white supremacists like Alfred Moore Waddell, marched to the Wilmington Daily Record office. They set the building on fire and destroyed the printing press, effectively silencing the African American voice in the city. The mob then moved through African American neighborhoods, killing an estimated 60 to 300 people, and some accounts today have it closer to 1,000. Though the exact number remains unknown due to the chaos and lack of accurate records. The mob proceeded to overthrow the legally elected government of Wilmington. They forced the resignation of the mayor, the board of aldermen, and other elected officials, replacing them with hand-picked white supremacist leaders. Alfred Moore Waddell declared himself the new mayor, cementing the coup's success. And for more information, as I mentioned, we have a handout in the back. We have some things on the website. And PBS just recently, just a few weeks ago, did an excellent, and I say excellent, 2-hour documentary on this story. So I urge you to go find more information by watching it. The next story I'm going to mention or talk about is Seneca Village, the story behind Central Park. Nestled in the heart of Manhattan, Central Park is one of New York City's most iconic landmarks. Yet the lush greenery and tranquil lakes that we see today conceal a dark chapter in the city's history. A chapter that involves the displacement of Seneca Village, a thriving African American community. Seneca Village was established in 1825 when Andrew Williams, an African American shoe shiner, purchased land in the area. Soon after, other African Americans followed suit and the community began to grow. By the 1850s, Seneca Village had expanded to 50 homes and included 3 churches, a school, and several cemeteries. The residents were not only African Americans, but also Irish and German immigrants, creating a diverse and tight-knit community. For its time, Seneca Village was a place of relative prosperity and stability for African Americans. Owning property was particularly significant because it provided a measure of economic independence and allowed African American men the right to vote. The community was a rare example of African American land ownership in a period when racial discrimination and segregation were rampant. In the mid-19th century, New York City was undergoing rapid urbanization, and there was a growing demand for the public green spaces inspired by European parks. City planners envisioned a grand park that would serve as a great public work for the city's burgeoning population. In 1853, the New York State Legislature enacted a law to create Central Park, a decision that would spell the end for Seneca Village. The law granted the city the power to acquire the land through eminent domain, a legal process that allows the government to expropriate private property for public use. Despite protests from the residents who argued that they were being unfairly targeted, the city proceeded with its plans. The community was offered compensation for their land, but it was often inadequate and far below market value. By 1857, the city had forcibly evicted the residents of Seneca Village. Houses were demolished and the community was scattered. Many of the former residents struggled to rebuild their lives, and the tight-knit social fabric of Seneca Village was irreparably torn apart. For decades, the story of Seneca Village was largely forgotten, buried under the paths and ponds of Central Park. However, recent historical investigation and archaeological excavations have brought this lost community back into public consciousness. Artifacts such as household items, toys, and tools have been unearthed, providing tangible connections to the people who once lived there. Today, Seneca Village is recognized as an important part of New York City's history, a testament to the resilience and determination of its residents. The history of Seneca Village serves as a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made by African American communities in the face of urban development and the enduring struggle for justice and equality. Central Park may now be a beloved urban oasis, but beneath its serene surface lies the untold story of Seneca Village, a story of community, displacement, and resilience. It is a chapter that deserves to be remembered and honored as part of the rich tapestry of New York City's past. This too, on our website and on the documentation we have, there's a link to a YouTube video that was done, I think, by ABC about Seneca Village and additional resources there. The last, before I share my story, is the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And I'm going to kind of skim through this, but basically, UDC, which is still around today, is a neo-Confederate hereditary association for female descendants of Confederate Civil War soldiers. And their whole aim is the promotion of the pseudo-historical lost cause ideology. And all of this corresponds with white supremacy. Their primary activity as a group was the construction of Confederate memorials. And they also have been very active through probably from about 1920, thereabouts, through the 1970s in educating young children on the story of the Civil War told from the Confederate standpoint. And so in doing this, and in fact, just yesterday I had a discussion with my grandson who's in high school and is of course studying American history, and he mentioned that in fact this sort of is true. They had a big hand in demanding textbooks for public schools that told the story of the war from the Confederate of the Confederacy, from a definite Southern viewpoint. Their work is one of the essential elements of perpetuating Confederate mythology. And just a bit on the lost cause of the Confederacy, or commonly known as the Lost Cause. Also, American pseudo-historical and historical negationist myth that argues the cause of the Confederate States during the American Civil War was just heroic and not centered on slavery. This was first enunciated in 1866 and continues to have influence on racism, gender roles, and religious attitudes, particularly in the southern United States. And I will just say the lost cause proponents present slavery as a positive good and deny the allegation of the alleviation of the conditions of slavery was the central cause for the American Civil War. And it goes on from there. Both of these, again, will be on the handout as well. If you want to look up on your own in Wikipedia, if you put in lost cause, or the United Daughters of the Confederacy, they have pages of information about that. And their influence, not just in the early 1900s, but certainly even through today. So lastly, I will share my story. And some of you have heard this before, because I wrote this actually in 2020. A friend asked me to write an article for her newsletter, and this was during the uprisings and civil unrest after the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor murders. So she asked me to write my feelings about those incidents specifically. What I was moved by spirit to write really kind of surprised me, was something a little bit different. But it basically, unfortunately, is still true today. It was my life as an African American woman in this country. My dear friend Leanne asked me to share my feelings as an African American woman about the current racial unrest in our country. Honestly, I have so many entangled feelings, it is hard to know where to begin. I suppose my overwhelming feeling is one of sadness. I am sad that we as a nation are still no better or closer to the dream of equality than when I was born over 60 years ago. Sure, some of you are saying, that's not true. After all, we had our first Black African American president, we had a Black family in the White House, and they were not the help. We have Black and brown people in every profession in our country. Black people can live and work and visit any place in this country they want. Come on, what more do they want? I'll tell you what I want as an African American person whose father and brother fought in this country in our wars, whose brother gave his life in that fight. I want my children, especially my sons, nephews, and grandsons, to leave their homes every day without fear that because of the color of their skin, they may not make it back. I want to be able to walk in a store, any store in this country, and not have to worry about being followed by store security. I want to not have to explain to my grandson why he can't get into mischief in the street, as any white child does as a rite of passage growing up, and what to do if and when a police officer rolls up on him. I want to be able to run out to the grocery store with my hair in curlers and my ripped sweatpants in the middle of the day because I forgot a recipe ingredient and not have to worry that someone will explicitly or implicitly tell me I don't belong. I want to go into a car dealership and not have to practically give them access to my bank account or be dressed dripping in gold and diamonds to get someone to take me seriously. These missives are not my imaginings. These are things that have happened to me or someone close to me. This is my life every day of every year, and I tell you, I am just plain tired. It's a wonder every African American in this country doesn't have PTSD. I have seen this movie, civil unrest, protests in the streets, along with violence of all sorts, at least 3 distinct times in my life. Dare I hope this time the ending will be different. I have chosen not to watch the video, the life being squeezed out of Mr. Floyd for the crime of being Black. I don't need to see the video to know what it depicts. I do not want that image in my psyche. These last 2 weeks brings back painful memories that I had successfully buried. Like the time as a 5-year-old going to my first day of kindergarten, riding the school bus. I remember my mom and other parents from my neighborhood riding the bus with us. I can still remember being a bit puzzled and surprised that my mom and the other adults were on the bus. As we approached the front of the school, the parents told us kids not to look out the school bus window. Of course, you know we snuck looks only to see a mob of angry white faces shouting at us. Our parents ushered us off the bus and formed a barrier between us and the angry mob. Lest you think this was somewhere in the Deep South, it was in the Northeast Bronx in New York City in 1961. Imagine the trauma that inflicted on us. For me, those images were buried so deep I did not remember them until about 12 years ago. Or another time, as an 8-year-old with my older brother on our way to my older sister's apartment in Manhattan. I had an accident which caused us to stop at a department store. By the time we left the store, it must have been rush hour in the city. I just remember lots of adults on the street in what I now know was business attire. Because I was still rather young and the streets were crowded, my brother quite naturally was holding my hand as we walked down the street. A tall, at least he was to me at the time because I was little, white man walked towards us. Instead of walking around us or stepping aside so we could pass, he continued walking straight toward us, forcing my brother to let go of my hand. I remember feeling frightened because for the briefest of moments, I could not see my brother nor he me. I'll never forget how angry my brother was. Of course, at the time, I didn't understand why, but as an adult, I surely do. That guy deliberately walked at us to force exactly what happened. And while I cannot say for certain it was because we were Negroes, to this day, I can recall the look on his face and how he tried to pretend he didn't see us. Or another incident with the same brother riding in a cab, still young, it may have been even on the same day. My brother gave the cab driver a $20 bill, which was a lot of money in the early 60s. The cab driver was white, as they all were back then, and him examining and re-examining the bill to make sure it was real before throwing the change, and the fare could only have been a couple of dollars, at my brother. These incidents were so tremendous that although buried, they stuck with me all these many years. A more recent incident happened here in Louisville. I engaged in my favorite lunchtime pastime, shopping at TJ Maxx. I was at work, so dressed in my professional best, when I noticed this white man looking over at me. I met his eyes, smiled, and nodded my head. I walked into another aisle and soon noticed him again. My mind was on my shopping, so I saw him but didn't think much of it. I figured he was killing time waiting for his wife, who must be nearby. I guess I thought that because that is what my husband did if he was reaching his shopping limit. By the fourth time this guy passed me in yet another aisle, it suddenly dawned on me that he was store undercover security, and he was watching me for theft. I was so outraged, hurt, and angry that I called him out on it. I asked him outright if he was watching me because I'm black and he thought I was stealing. Needless to say, he didn't answer and walked to the other end of the store. I'm sure he was not alone. I was on fire. I had shopped in that store hundreds of times and spent hundreds of dollars each time. I think I told him something like, "You're watching me? I spend more money in here at one time than you make in a week." Believe me when I tell you, that did not stop my silent fury or feelings of rejection. It was as if someone caught me naked in the middle of the street. I was furious, mostly because there was nothing I could do about it. There was and is no redress against that kind of outright racism. Meanwhile, I had a white neighbor who would go into TJ Maxx and essentially steal. She would walk down the food aisles and open packages and start eating the contents right there in the store and then leave the open, half-eaten packages on their shelves. I know this to be a fact because during high school, my daughter worked there. She told me how security would catch her doing it and repeatedly asked her to leave. Here's what didn't happen. The police weren't called, she was never arrested for theft, or told she had to pay for the items. I can guarantee you that had I even appeared to do something similar, I would have an arrest record or at the very least be on probation and banned from the store. While these incidents on the surface may seem mild or even inconsequential, imagine having to live these and even greater slights every day of your life. Imagine the toll that would take on your soul, the feelings of helplessness, the undue burden of trying to be perfect every day because you know one mistake could cost you your job, your home, or even your life. This is what it's like to live in my skin. While it is hard enough for me, imagine still having to explain to your grandchild why white people are killing black people, and even still why those people largely get away with it. Before you think, well, if they would just obey the rules and not break the law, I want you to think back to a time when you rolled through a stop sign or red light because you thought no one was watching. Lo and behold, the police officer siren was the next thing you heard. How many times during those incidents did you just get a slap on the wrist or a stern warning to be more careful, Mr. or Mrs. Jones? You didn't have to worry that this simple traffic stop could escalate into something that would wind up with you going to jail and then a couple of days later, dead. Think Sandra Bland. Or how many times do you see Officer Joe at your kid's Little League game, so when he has to come to your home or you see him in court for some minor or not infraction, he tells you not to worry about it because he'll take care of the issue for you. That doesn't happen in our community. No, what happens to us is dying while eating ice cream on your living room couch because some racist white cop mistakenly walks into your apartment and upon seeing you, because you're black, assumes you're a burglar and kills you. Think Botham Jean in Dallas, Texas. More recently, right here in Louisville, Breonna Taylor watching a movie in her bed with her boyfriend and gunned down by police in her own hallway. Or 9 black parishioners in a Bible study gunned down by young white racists whom they invited in to study the Bible with them at their church in Charleston in 2015. What's even more insulting and outrageous is this expectation by white people that we should then immediately and publicly forgive the perpetrator. In quotes, it always seems like black people are given the heavy task of being able to forgive, says Reverend Sharon Reiser, who did not immediately forgive Dylan Roof, the young racist who killed her mom, who was among the Bible study group that night. So not only are we expected to be perfect in every way, we are not even given license to our rightly and justifiable anger. Very few communities in our nation have had to suffer as much as black people who have also been robbed of the opportunity to emote from that experience, said the Reverend Michaels Waters. See the article, Some See Rush to Forgiveness to Forget Racial Violence by Erin Haynes, October 3rd, 2019, AP News. Back to my grandson. Listening to NPR last week, the reporter interviewed a scholar who spoke about white privilege. My grandson, at the time, who was at the tender age of 12, is still very much an innocent and asked about white privilege and how did it benefit white people. Tough answer to put into words. I gave him the following analogy. You know how you like to do well in school and how you feel when you get an A on a test? Well, imagine that you had a test to take and you studied hard and you took the test and got an A. It was a good feeling, so you decided that from then on you would study hard for every test so you could continue getting A's and have that good feeling. One day you have a test, and although you studied hard, you left the test feeling you hadn't done so well. So you prepare yourself for a grade less than an A. You get your test back, and what do you know? You got an A after all. Well, you begin feeling really good about yourself and think, wow, I'm pretty smart. I see my grandson back there squirming. Even when I don't know the material, I still get an A. Before you know it, you're walking around with a feeling of superiority because no matter what, you always pull out A's in all the subjects you have. Then one day, inadvertently, you learn that you hadn't actually earned all those A's on all those exams, but instead were given those A's because your teacher really likes you and just wanted you to feel good about yourself. I asked him, how would you feel? I expected him to say really bad or sad, angry, stupid, not so smart. What he said instead was 10 times more powerful and crystallized for me why so many white people are resistant to the idea of white privilege. He said, I'd feel betrayed. Bingo. While white privilege benefits whites at the expense of non-whites in this country, study the Social Security Act of 1935, the GI Bill 1940s, redlining in housing and lending, and the building of wealth and the middle class after World War II. It also detracts from white people's ability to succeed on their own merits and inhibits their ability to test their mettle. Without even knowing, you are tethered to an invisible system of affirmative action from which it is nearly impossible to be free. I would be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge some of the looting and rioting that has taken place over the last week. While I don't agree with either, I also understand something about both. When people feel that they have played by the rules repeatedly, yet the rules only apply to them, further, and even in application, they are never the beneficiaries of those rules. You leave them no choice but to flout those rules. Think here, social contract. I've included links in the handouts and on our websites to 2 videos posted on the subject for your digestion. One is by the comedian and late-night host Trevor Noah, who eloquently and clearly articulates the feelings of many Black Americans, and the other is much more raw, with some very salty language, but no less impactful, by Kimberly Jones, a young African-American author and activist that created a 3-minute Facebook Live video. For context, Google Rosewood, Florida, and Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you choose to watch Kimberly, be sure to stay to the very end after the camera is off her and pans the area and then back to her. Her reaction to her soliloquy is telling. For more on understanding white privilege, read the book Waking Up White and Finding Myself in the Story of Race by Debbie Irving. Also, watch the movie Rosewood. Thank you for letting me share my perspective. Let me also say, I recognize and know with certainty that we are all children of the divine. I know on a spiritual level that I chose this role as an African American woman in this lifetime, not only for my own soul's lessons, but for the collective lesson of all spirits during this incarnation. Thank you so much.
I'm going to tell you this little story just by way of calming myself down. Someone once asked Paul Simon if he had any regrets throughout his career, and he said, "Only one, that I didn't sing Bridge Over Troubled Water." When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled. I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, when darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. Sail on, silver girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, if you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Linda. I knew we were in for a powerful, inspiring, thought-provoking talk. Didn't let us down. Thank you very, very much. The challenge to each one of us, and I say this for myself as well as to each one of you, we are a powerful community. I'm so glad that there was a committee that was willing to step forward to start recognizing Black History Month. I'm also that each one of us, we say it at the beginning, that wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome to continue to embrace that, individually and community, that we are divine. God loves us, we are love, and that takes courage to be different, to take risk, to be. And I'm grateful for each one of you for letting me take risk amongst you. Thank you again, Linda. We come into the time and for our offering. We have many gifts, but this is the time for our financial gifts that we share. So if you will take in your hands your offering and say, I think we have it up there, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you.
we say thank you for these offerings. We see the energy in these baskets going out into our world to make us a better place. And to all beings, just be kind, and so it is. Amen.
We come to a time that for those who are chaplains, have been chaplains, if you want to come forward to offer prayer with others, feel free to. We know that the chaplaincy program is in a period of transition. Also to welcome you again, we got the energy service afterwards in the hallway. So feel free to participate in the energy service. And at this time, we continue with our prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The power of God enfolds us. The presence of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Now there is peace on earth, and now it begins with me. Now there is peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, united all are we. Now we walk with each other in perfect harmony. Peace has begun with me, and this is the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment to live, each moment in peace eternally. Now there is peace on earth,